Hello and welcome to the Robbies Podcast, your destination for in-depth discussion and analysis of the Premier League. I'm Robbie Mustoe, he's Robbie Earle, and here are today's topics. Tottenham travel to Old Trafford and trounce Man United 3-0, placing Erik Ten Hag back on the hot seat he found himself on at the end of last season. Manchester City are left frustrated in a 1-1 draw at Newcastle and have now dropped points in 2 consecutive matches. Arsenal survive the scare at the Emirates by scoring 2 goals in added time to lift them over Leicester City, and Liverpool take their place at the top of the Premier League table for the first time under Arne Slot after a 2-1 win at Wolves. That's what we've got coming up in today's episode.
Okay, my friend. Weekend off for both of us, so watching duty of the games, which I have to say was quite nice, very, very different. Well, let's represent the Premier League. Let's talk about the weekend, mate. Games, drama, incident all over. We'll start with the latest game we've watched today. It was at Old Trafford. An interesting game because there was talk of possibly both club managers under a little bit of scrutiny, both clubs not quite being as fluid and playing as well as they would like. So a big game, always a huge game. Manchester United versus Spurs, historically down the years. Usually a few goals, usually plenty of incidents. We got all that and more, Rob, at Old Trafford, which turned out to be a very fun Sunday for Spurs, not so fun for Manchester United.
Yeah, I mean, I think the story of both managers being under pressure might or not be true for the most, but it's just not for me. Ange Postecoglou for me is not under pressure. I get that when a team doesn't start well, then people start talking about it and start questioning his style and his approach and tactics and everything else. And is he going to change? Does he need to tweak and stuff like that? I've always really enjoyed what he's tried to do. Really interesting. Both clubs have got new managers over the last kind of year or so. Well, more for Erik Ten Hag. And you can really see what Postecoglou's doing. Now, it hasn't been perfect. And when his team don't play well, then they are a little vulnerable from balls over the top. But when they play well, it's a very effective way of playing. A high line squeezes the play away from their goal, gives their players a chance to press it and win it back in good areas. And that's what we saw, Rob. I think from Spurs, that might be maybe the best 90 minutes we've seen from them. Of course, we know they got help with Bruno sending off just before half time. But in terms of Ange ball, as we like to call it, that's probably about what it's all about. This flying out the blocks, a brilliant start, incredibly attacking with the lineup with Kulusevski and Maddison as in the midfield. Just leaving Bentancur really as a defensive type of player a little bit. Fullbacks that fly forward. They defend with 2. They build up with 2 at the back, those 2 central defenders, Mickey van der Ven, which we'll go on and talk about, I'm sure. But their attacking play, the creative play, the all over United at Old Trafford, there's no sense of being defensive, was about as perfect a game, I think, as Ange, Rob, could have wished for.
Yeah, and let's not forget, he didn't have his captain, his best player, by the way, and wasn't available. You're right. I thought, considering whether we call it pressure, it's probably the wrong word, but there was a bit of an intense look at Spurs going away to Manchester United. United not flowing. There was questions being asked. I thought they handled that superbly. They looked comfortable in what they were doing, how they were doing it. I thought they enjoyed going to Old Trafford. I think the manager's selection told me that they were so confident they're going to have more possession, so I can play Kulusevski, I can play Maddison with Bentancur holding because we're going to have the ball. They ain't going to hurt us enough, Rob. So I thought there was lots of positive. I saw the interview at the end, Van der Ven and Johnson. And listen, we've been in dressing rooms, we've won, lost, and drawn, and know the emotions. But there was a real nice feeling between the 2 players, Rob, like the relationships that's growing, that things are coming together. The manager after talked about, he doesn't see the pressure and he's going to do the same thing as he's done from day one when he started the football club. Just get the sense of things moving forward with Ange, and some people ain't going to like it on the bad days, but as a rule and going forward, as they get better, maybe as better players come in, it's kind of an exciting time for Spurs. I would say the exact opposite seems to be for Manchester United, mate. I would say the exact opposite. I thought it was quite a damning performance when we're looking at 2 teams which we're probably right now, Rob, are saying a kind of vying for the same kind of spots and positions, which, you know, is actually a bit of a slur on Manchester United and where they've fallen to a certain degree. But, you know, coming into this game, I thought we're going to find out about both these clubs a little bit today. I'm a little worried what I saw for Manchester United today, mate. If they're only Luke Shaw missing from almost everybody else being available, that is a worry, what we saw today.
Well, that's right, Rob, and I made a note of that as well, because I thought Rasmus Højlund got minutes, Rob, in the game, came on a second half, the striker. Now, obviously, he's been out a little bit. I think Luke Shaw is one player that makes this 11 better to pop in at left back. So he's kind of getting, I know Lenny Yoro is longer term, and maybe, you know, he is a top-class centre-back that will make them better at some point in the future. But you can't say in Lisandro Martinez and Matthias de Ligt, that, you know, that's a very good, they're kind of recent players. That's a good defensive partnership. Masraoui is new. So Luke Shaw to come in, Rasmus Højlund's fit again now. That's kind of it. And I think I've said all along, really, that we should, you know, with these new players, with the new hierarchy, with the new CEO, director of football, all these guys that have come in, Rob, and they backed the manager, and with some new players, I've been saying that let's just see. Let's just see what happens. And he's been trusted. I think we both thought that there would be a change in the summer, like it's a new slate, a clean slate, somebody else come in that will have more time, more patience, that he's got to build something and it will take time. They went with the same guy, and the evidence is growing, Rob. The evidence is growing week by week. Now, again, I'm not going to change my opinion on this, Rob. I'm not going to say that the next game, if he loses, he should get fired. For me, it should be a bit more evidence gathering up until Christmas. Up until Christmas. Let's see him when he's got many games. When Højlund comes back, he's got full options really available. And sure, I mean, we're not talking many now, Rob. You know, there's only one or two that's out. And you just mentioned Heung-min Son there. But anyway, with his new squad, with his new players, he was trusted, Rob. He was trusted by this new hierarchy. Well, it doesn't make much sense to me to get rid of him. You know, we're in game 6. Let's just see how it goes, and get a better sense of it around Christmas when there's more games under the hood. It's funny, Rob, because, and I know that consistency has been the problem for this United side. But remember last weekend, Crystal Palace, and we saw him playing some lovely football. I remember saying on the show, that's more like it. There's some good football there. They didn't win the game; it was 0-0, and they created a little bit more. But they looked assured. The patterns were good. They looked. And yet this one, I don't know whether it's playing at Old Trafford, Rob, but God, I just thought in that game, that's better. Now grow on that a little bit. Show us some improvements, some progression. They're back to square one given that today. And, you know, it wasn't just the sending off, which, by the way, let's touch on that quickly now, Rob. It wasn't. It was a yellow card offence.
It's not a red card offence. How VAR doesn't get involved there, Rob, and ask the referee to maybe have a look at it. Maybe you've seen it wrong. Can you have a quick look?
It's a clear and obvious error for me, Rob.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a clear and obvious error.
It's one of those that should be, you know, VAR should intervene and it should have been looked at. That said, Rob, one of my notes, I wrote that obviously it's disappointing for United's point of view, lose the captain, Bruno Fernandes. But to be honest, if Spurs had lost a man, it'd probably been a fairer game. 10 men of Spurs, 11 men United, because Spurs still, and what you would have found, Rob, which is my other point, was if Spurs had gone down to 10 men, they continued doing what they're doing, because we've seen them go down to 9 and do that. Whereas Manchester United, it's hard to sometimes see what they're actually trying to do. I felt a little sorry for Ugarte, mate, who's come into that football club. He's come to Manchester United, and, like, you know, he's a big midfield player. He's going to play with Kobe Mainoo. They're going to start on him. And then around him, there's all kinds of chaos. Nobody really knows, looks like they know what they're doing. So it must be so difficult for a new player, you know, international quality player, to come into that team and do your job in the way you think or you'd expect to do your job in a team that's set up.
I mean, I agree with that. But given the sort of player he is, Rob, I did expect a little bit more. I did expect a little bit of digging in a little bit and getting some.
I'm not saying, but I'm just trying to think.
I know it's not easy.
In his head, Like, what's going on around? Are we pressing? Are we dropping off? Is he sitting in front of the midfield players? Is he going with, with Maddison's running him all over the plot, getting possession? I mean, I thought Maddison played particularly well today. Rob, I thought he got on the ball in a big game. He dominated possession. Even before Bruno went off, I'm looking at him and Bruno, and I'm saying he's winning that challenge today between the two.
And also, Rob, just on Spurs again, their Achilles heel really, or their vulnerability is to the counter-attack. Yes, and to be fair, Man United with Bruno's passes and with Garnacho and Rashford, I thought they did a pretty good job defensively as well. Yeah. No mistakes defensively. No, very few that got in behind that they were clear in on goal. I mean, Mickey van der Ven, Rob, we got to quickly talk about that run. There isn't many times, and I think I said it last time it happened actually, but there isn't many times where I'm like, what? When I'm watching at home, I jump off the settee with something that happens on the match, because we watch thousands of games. That run when he picked the ball up, and to get to where he got to, because I am thinking this guy could go all the way. He's that quick, and United were I don't know whether they know how quick he is. That run was an incredible run from a central defender. I think Jim Beglin said it like, I don't think we've seen, or somebody said it, and maybe in the studio guys, that we haven't seen a centre back do that. That was an incredible run. The ball
to a byline. Yeah, we've seen them run sometimes back defensively, but this guy, and he just said, I saw his interview before. He basically said he saw a gap and thought, I'm going for it. Yeah. And he saw De Ligt come and thought, right, I'm going to knock it past him, get to the byline, and then he said, I know our wide players will come in on the opposite side. Johnson's there. 3 minutes in, you get the goal, and all of a sudden the whole game changes, Rob. And you're right. And that's a testament to the manager, the way they play, the confidence and ability of the centre-back. With 3 minutes in a game away at Old Trafford, if my centre-back goes over the halfway line, I'm shoving him back and saying, we're Old Trafford. You ain't getting that far. But in the way that this manager plays and allows them to express themselves, he sees a gap, he goes through it, he gets a goal. Spurs get control of the game. And from the moment they scored, Rob, the other thing that I never really felt United were going to get back into it, with or without the 10 men. Really
that was the worst bit, Rob, the first 40 minutes of the game. Yeah. Wow, United was so second best. I mean, I think Johnson hit the post there. They had other chances. Timo Werner's gone through. They should have scored 2 or 3 goals.
Timo Werner went through, didn't he?
Yeah, he should have scored. Yeah. One other thing, Rob, before we move on a little bit, Dom Solanke, I just thought his goal is typical Solanke, or is a poacher's centre forward's goal, and that's a good player to have in your club. And he may not be the most spectacular kind of footballer in terms of what he can do, his skills and scoring, but he's a poacher and a scorer, and stuck his leg forward there, gets a flick on, they get the goal to make it 3-0 comfortable. But I think he's going to be a very useful signing to get that sort of goal, and maybe in bigger games, closer games, it'd be more important than that. But I thought, that's Solanke, that's what he can do, 3-0. Well, but really, really good from Spurs. And back to square one a little bit for Manchester United, and the concern will be whether, the pressure mounts on Ten Hag so much that I don't know, the ownership do something, they have to look something. That's the last thing they want to do, is to look for another manager.
They don't want to, but so early. Like you said, I agree with you. I've wrote down 2025, New Year's Day, new calendar. If things are still the same, mate, and they've got Europa League. The other thing I was just going to say, 2 quick things I wanted to mention. First, the comment that came out, and I heard it sort of regurgitated again, when Christian Eriksen, who's not a media guy by any means, doesn't come out with a big statement, but he came out with something midweek when they drew with 20 and talked about the opposition wanted it more than us, and like stuff like that. Now, I just wondered why somebody like him, is a smart, intelligent man, doesn't come out for headlines and clickbait and all that. Why would he say something like that to represent? Because he knows what those words means. He knows what that is about. Is there something in that dressing room that's not good? He's been at big clubs, mate. He's been around big players. Well,
I know John Champion pointed out the program notes, and Ten Hag saying nothing, 100% is what we expect here, and that maybe is on the same line. Maybe there's a few of these players that don't roll their sleeves up, and in terms of going through the team to figure out who that might be, I think Martinez can't be him. Goalkeeper did a really good job. Dalot, maybe. Mazraoui, not him.
No.
De Ligt, too early, not him. Garnacho, maybe. Zirkzee, maybe. Bruno, For me, no. I think he's.
No, he has his ways, but not. You would never say lack of effort or.
I mean, Marcus Rashford possibly very possibly becomes. He's not that type. And Kobbie Mainoo, for as much as we love his talent and his ability and his skill, maybe if you examined his as a midfield central player, maybe there's times when he doesn't affect the game enough, Rob, and maybe the game passes him by a little bit. We know he's a talent, we know he's incredibly skillful, but being a midfield player at a club like Man United, we are going to compare, but maybe compare with other central midfield players at that club, and they've had some absolute magnificent players that can do everything. So, he's young.
One of them, Rob, I would probably say situation, age, lack of structure and stability is not helping him. If we go on to talk about Chelsea, where there is some structure and young players in a similar position are starting to look a lot better because they've got a system of play and a way of play that they can work. I just think with this kid, it must be a bit of a nightmare, mate. A bit of a nightmare for him. But who's to say? And my final line, Rob, was I was laughing when they panned up and Sir Alex wasn't there, but he was the seat that he sits in. And I think there's a couple of other of the execs there. And I kind of laughed to myself because remember the famous old saying that Sir Alex is supposed to have said to his Manchester United, the great Manchester United teams of the past, where one day he went in before the game and said, lads, it's only Spurs, a bit like Spurs. I kind of laughed to myself and said, we're not getting far away from the position where we're saying, lads, it's only Man United.
Yeah, it's only Old Trafford. I know, crazy.
It's only Man United, which, I mean, is incredible. And that's what he's got to turn around, Rob. Yeah. Tottenham went to Old Trafford today and enjoyed themselves. And that can't be right.
No, work to do for Erik ten Hag again, and we'll see how this continues. But we should move it on, Robbie Earle. So that was the big game on the Sunday. Let's cut back to the top of the league table in Manchester City. They went to St James's Park. Game finished 1-1. Gvardiol scored a really clever goal, by the way. Really good feet. Lovely feet to score, make it 1. And then Anthony Gordon scored with a penalty in 58th minute to make it 1-1. St James's Park rocking in the second half, much better. I thought, Rob, actually, first of all, Rob, we should just mention the CEO of Newcastle United, Darren Eales.
Darren Eales,
is sadly stepping down, isn't he? He's been diagnosed with, I think, with a blood cancer, and he's going to. So that's that. Our thoughts are with his family a little bit at this really moment.
Great football man, and there's good things at Newcastle United. Wish him and his family all the best. Fingers crossed. But
no, the football in the second half was really good. I thought, Rob, I just thought before to chuck it back over to you, it looked pretty even, by the way. I know that City maybe were on top in the first half, but they didn't create a ton. I thought Newcastle did a good job. And I think Man City weren't quite, I don't know. They are going to miss Rodri. This isn't about this game because I looked back, Rob, just to make sure, but he didn't start the first 3 games, Rodri. He came on 7 and 4, and they won all of them. So they've done well without Rodri before. But over the course of the season, this is going to be a huge. I think we haven't spoke, Rob, have we? We haven't spoke since.
No, not since the injury's been confirmed.
So it's over the course of 38 games, or it was left now, 33, 34, whatever it is. It's going to be a big factor. It's going to be a big factor, and Man City weren't
possible Ballon d'Or winner. That's what we're talking about. That's the level of footballer we're talking about. Just on that one, I'll show you my 2 penneth right here. Could be an interesting season for John Stones. But everyone's talking about Kovacic and obviously Gundogan's back, and play Nunes and more. John Stones, my friend, is versatile. He's a good footballer. He's got good defensive responsibility, playing in front of that back four. He knows those spaces well that Pep likes. Just wonder if he might have a big role to play in some of the big games when City will feel they want to have control of the game and not get overrun in midfield. We saw Manuel Akanji, Rob, go from centre back into midfield in this game, and that's something they've done before. He's done before. That's something we might see. But it's a good shout, Rob. John Stones. So, are you basically saying that he might, instead of a Kovacic in some games, correct, Kovacic will not play or be a number 8, and John Stones will be in the Rodri role? And I got to say, it's a good shout. I mean, he's still
not as good as Rodri at doing that.
No.
But it's the closest they've got probably to a similar sort of physical,
footballing midfield, physical presence that might just give them, if it looks like in these certain days. Listen, we're a couple of games in where we've seen. It's interesting that you mentioned that you thought the game, because I almost felt there was a period in the last weekend's game when we were disappointed for the Trossard sending off, obviously for the kick now, kicking the ball away. But there was a sense that Arsenal felt like they could go toe-to-toe with City, and then that went away, obviously, once he got sent off. Yeah. I thought there was a similar sense in the Newcastle game. In fairness to Pep, and I know sometimes Pep gives out a lot of credit to the opposition after he's beat them 6-0. But I actually thought he was very honest and very open in saying that, he praised Newcastle, praised Eddie Howe's team, said how difficult it is to play against them. I thought it was a bit of a return to the old Newcastle, the intense football, the physicality, the high press, the energy that I thought ruffled City's feathers a little bit, Robert, which we don't often see.
No, that's right. That's three draws now, Rob, isn't it? Inter Milan, Arsenal, and Newcastle for them. The other thing in terms of that replacement of Rodri, of course, January is not that far away. I would expect Man City to try and find somebody in that role. I mean, Kovacic is brilliant. We saw him live, like firsthand at Stamford Bridge, first game of the season, where he was outstanding, and he's a brilliant player. Yeah. But to miss Rodri for the whole season, whether it's John Stones or whether they buy somebody in January, I think that will be addressed, because that is for me a big problem, Rob. Just on that, Rob, and the title with them, I know that you went for Man City. Yeah. The Rodri injury, does that make you how much has that knocked your confidence that they'll go on and win much, or do you think they've found ways before they've missed players?
Listen, it makes the job more difficult, absolutely no doubt about that, but I've seen them not have Erling Haaland for a season. I've seen them not have Kevin De Bruyne, and they found a way. Different people step in at different points. I think the Gundogan business looks like great business, by the way, now, just to have someone like him around where you can drop in and out as required. Bernardo Silva's going to have a bigger role to play, Phil Foden. So, no, doesn't change my decision on who I think will finish top. It does absolutely makes it more difficult without Rodri. And if they do this without him all season, it's another feather in the cap, mate, of this guy and what he can do. I also just want to turn things back to Newcastle. I thought Eddie Howe and his team, I talked about, I thought it was much more like the old Newcastle. And you got to remember they had no Isak, no Callum Wilson.
I know.
They're better strikers. It's a front three of Anthony. It was Anthony Gordon, Judge Murphy, and Harvey Barnes. So three players who you'd look at, Rob, and think, tell you, I thought they gave City a real handful of problems. I thought their energy, their runs off the back, their willingness to close down. And with this, mate, I'm going to go to my underappreciated performer of the week. Anthony Gordon, my friend, who was signed from Everton. And I think at the time, a few people were scratching their heads in terms of that amount of money. People were kind of asking questions like, what's his thing? What's his, what is he? Is he a winger who goes down the line? Is he somebody who cuts inside? Does he get goals? Does he assist? There's lots of questions asked about him. He had a little fallout with Eddie Howe, remember, when he got dragged off a game, wasn't very happy about it, had a bit of a thing, and Eddie, as he does, calmed things down. They had a chat. He's very quickly become a very key, important part of Newcastle United. I've seen him, Rob, play either side wide, where he's a threat. His direct running at defenders is a problem. He can play down the centre, as he did against City, and cause them all kinds of problems with his run. The penalty was a perfect example of what he's good at and how he does it. He's got a bit of drive and a bit of nasty in him, mate. He wants to win. I believe there was people looking at him in the recent window, and with PSR, there was talking about if somebody has to go. There was talking about big clubs, I think Liverpool included, even with the Everton thing that they were looking at him. He's just one of those players, Rob. I think if you think of all the big players in the Premier League and the big clubs, like Newcastle, I don't think he'd be anywhere at the top of your list if somebody. But I think there's more to come. I think with what Eddie Howe's trying to do and try to build, Anthony Gordon's going to be a key part of that. And I just felt like this week against Manchester City with no Isak and with no Callum Wilson, he was a real threat to them all day long, and gets my underappreciated performer of the week.
Yeah, I like it because of how he plays up front. I mean, the run for the penalty was a really bright run, and he's one of them, Rob. And I think I think it's quite rare to get a winger that goes as a centre forward and knows and times those runs in behind really well. I mean, of course, you'd rather have Wilson or Isak in that position, but against Man City, they push on a little bit and they leave you a little bit one-on-one at the back. It's kind of a good game for Gordon to play in that role. And the run he made, the timing of it, the pace that he's got, the composure and the confidence now when he goes through, he took his penalty really well. I like the shout. I really like him as a player. Again, we saw him firsthand a couple of seasons ago, and he was sharp, really, really sharp at St. James's Park. We watched him play. I think it was against Villa.
First game of season.
First game of season a couple of years ago, So, I like it. And he was good. And I said for Newcastle to finish fourth, and I don't think they've played particularly brilliantly, and they're way off.
I thought against Newcastle.
They're a bit off it at the moment, but with everybody's fit and available, with the way that Gordon's playing, and by the way, also I would mention Joelinton. Joelinton was a beast in midfield, mate. And Bruno Guimaraes and Tonali was going to find a little bit of time to get back to his best, but the midfield three I thought worked really, really well as well. Good performance in Newcastle United. Dropped points for Man City. They didn't lose the game. But it shows you the power of the league, Rob. And this Saturday, there's a few games, wasn't there, that the big boys, you might expect them to win. We're going to talk about Arsenal in a second. But the league is difficult, it's difficult.
There's no gimmies, is it?
No,
you go to St. James's Park when Newcastle are at it. That's a difficult challenge, and it's going to be the same for Liverpool and same for Arsenal when they go, teams up there looking for top spot. But a little mention there to Anthony Gordon and the good weekend for Newcastle United, who I thought were brave, went toe-to-toe in some respects with City and didn't really take a backward step. So great performance for them. Obviously, we'll see how City go without Rodri and how they work at either bringing somebody in or using the quality they've got to do things in different ways. Right, mate, it was a 10 o'clock window. I know we watched a couple of different games here. I ended up watching the Arsenal game because I was concerned to see how they came back from, obviously, the draw last week against City and all the talk, Pep and Arteta and all that's been going on between the two clubs. And I have to say, mate, Arsenal started in total control of the game against the Leicester team that found things difficult. Control the game, had more chances. One of those days, end up getting themselves ahead. A couple of goals. Martinelli getting his first for somewhat a while, which was important. Trossard getting the second. So you're thinking that it's they're in pole position, 2-0 up, coasting. Well, the second half, mate, turned a bit different, and Leicester sort of get themselves back into things. And James Justin with a beautiful equaliser. I don't know if you saw it, a volley that came in. Yeah,
it's a great goal. Yeah, great strike.
And all of a sudden, Rob, from 2-0 up and coasting, should have been 3 or 4 game done. But we're 2-2, and all of a sudden in a game. Now, the credit that I would say, and my takeaway right now is that this Arsenal team have grown up. They were a little bit like teenagers the first year or two, and a bit like all over. They're grown up. There was a sense for me for the whole period that they were behind that somehow they'll find a way. And they go to the corner kick routine is becoming something we talk about every week, but it's so important to them. It's like a comfort blanket to them. A corner kick routine, everybody in that Arsenal team feels like it's a chance of a goal. And more importantly, everybody in the opposition is fearing, oh no, they're so good at things. They get a goal from a corner. Havertz gets one that hits him off the defender and goes in 4-2. And they get the job done. It's a time when I think, I was sort of watching social media and people like, oh, Arsenal haven't made the most of City's slip up and then this is what's going to cost them. And all those headlines had to go away, mate, because they got the job done. They did it in a fashion that was mature.
Yeah, but they nearly never did it. Like, should you be worried? Like, it was a sweat. It was they had to do it late. Shouldn't have been easy against Leicester.
Nearly never did it means they did it, which is my point. Nearly never did it would be a different conversation we're having today, but they did it. you know, Man City have had their days. You know, Arsenal have had some in the past. Remember, I think back to the Bournemouth day, and was it Nelson come on? I just think there's a belief that they're going to do it, Rob. I now think that they're going to do it. And that's a big part of whether you get the job done or not. You've got to get over the line. This Arsenal team in the past times have not got over the line. I kind of feel like now they've grown. There's a group of players. There's a personality about the group of players now who feel like they want to get it done. Calafiori's come in, Timber's come in. They look like good bodies to have around.
They really
winners.
Are.
The winners. They're pumping their fists and they're getting onto each other. And so, I think that was the biggest point. They nearly didn't, but they did. And that's where Arsenal are now. They're starting to deliver on days when, listen, they ain't going to win every game, and there's going to be a game when you don't get it back. But I think the belief in the group is that we're going to get this back from 2-0 up. We're not going to draw 2-2. We know City's lost. We're going to win the game, and they did. And I think that was the important takeaway for me from the whole match.
Should we go to my game that I watched, Rob?
Yeah.
So it's interesting because you say that Arsenal have grown up. Chelsea haven't, right? Chelsea have not. They are raw, they are wild, but they're a lot of fun to watch. They're a lot of fun to watch, and some of the parts look really good. Some of the parts look awful. And I'm sorry to be as harsh as I'm probably going to be. Robert Sanchez, the Chelsea goalkeeper, is and I respect him and his career and what he's trying to do for Chelsea, but he's not at Chelsea's level. He's not at Chelsea's level.
He's not a top six goalie, basically.
No, he's not. He's just not. And I would say he's not a top half goalkeeper, Rob.
Top 10.
He's not a top 10 goalkeeper. Robert Sanchez. He made. I mean, it starts getting a bit embarrassing. You know, the
Mustoe one, wasn't it?
He came out. He come off his line, and one of them nowhere near the ball. He gets nodded in. A nice goal. For Ruter, who takes a knock, he's nowhere near it. The second one is trying to play out. He plays it straight to them, gives the ball away. 2 goals, and not down to Chelsea's immaturity or Chelsea's kind of tactics or whatever, or young. It's to the goalkeeper. And, it was a bad day for him. And maybe, of course, not every day is going to be a bad day. But if Chelsea, where Chelsea want to get, that's going to be something that absolutely is going to have to get upgraded. Now, I've chucked that one in, and that was the downside. For the rest of it was all good. It was really, really good. They had a little bit of a slow start because Brighton starts so well on the front foot. Brighton made a lot of mistakes as well. But Chelsea are just fun to watch, Rob. They're raw. They make they make some mistakes. They kind of bomb forward and get caught out defensively. Cole Palmer. I mean, it's like
it's incredible, mate. It's incredible. 10-minute hat trick.
Yeah, and gets the 4 goals. Minutes. Yeah, it seems to come easy to him, Rob. And the way that he celebrates and stuff, it looks a little awkward. Or maybe he looks a little arrogant, but it seems to come quite easy to him of finishing chances and his left foot, and he takes his penalty really nicely. The free kick is like. He runs off and has a little celebration and points, and he I don't know. He's just got this incredible confidence that shields him from any nerves, any anxiety about playing. I think he'll look back when he's retired and finished, like, wow, what it might seem a blur. It might be a blur to him as young, because he's doing such great things at a young age. I don't even know if he's taking it all in, but his confidence is such, it doesn't really matter, because he believes in his teammates. He believes in his own ability. I love the way that he's playing in the team right now, Rob. And their midfield was Caicedo, who's getting better as a holding player. The 2 8s, Enzo on his left-hand side, Cole Palmer on his right-hand side. Palmer goes to play up front against the ball to press in a 4-4-2. He drops back in that right position like many teams are doing now. He has Madueke on his outside that he links up brilliantly with. Jadon Sancho had flashes, wasn't his greatest game, but I think he assisted for the first goal. Nicholas Jackson up front had a bit of a frustrating day. And he's one of them, Rob, that he's a demander, which I don't mind as a striker. If you look at him, he's always having a go at the teammates. Look, look for me, and why didn't you play me in? And it seems like a sulky, moany. I love it. Like, demand. He didn't have a great day,
No,
Nicholas Jackson.
Didn't he? He says he kept running in behind. I saw
Always
highlights running in behind Duncan Webster. Was it the two centre backs?
Yeah, I mean, it for me, it remains to be a very interesting project. And Enzo Maresca, the expectations, probably including mine, we're a little lower, but we have seen a style, a plan, a continuity. Rob, we know they got loads of. We don't see the team changing all the time that we saw under previous managers. You know what you're going to get, and I think he's out of the Pep mold of course, working with Pep at City. I want a small squad. I want to get it drummed into these how I want to play. The game plan, the blueprint is getting in place, and yep, it's a bit shaky and it's a bit dodgy and it's a bit wild, but they're fun to watch, mate. They're fun to watch, and I think now that Stamford Bridge, I think they're going to start enjoying, understanding that this is very different to previous Chelseas that have been built to win straight away and managers that are expected to win straight away. This is polar opposite. The youngest team again, I think, this weekend again. 4-2 against Brighton. Brighton are a good side. But this 10 o'clock window, Robin, I know you watched the Arsenal Leicester game. There's a couple of others. Chelsea Brighton, for me, I want to watch that. Two bright managers, tactical managers, expansive, creative, clever, thoughtful, new project at Chelsea and at Brighton. Loved it. Loved the game. Plenty of goals, entertainment. I'm sat there, Robert, at halftime. I'm like, wow, I've seen 6 goals. This is the game to watch on the 10 o'clock window this Saturday. So, no, I loved it. I'm enjoying what's happening at Stamford Bridge.
Yeah, there's goals in this team as well.
It really is.
You think Jackson didn't score and keeps running in behind, and the wide players are going to get better. Sancho, Madueke, Cole Palmer's an incredible sort of player to have in that role that you can almost build your team around, mate. Make sure he gets
good bench as well, Rob. Robert's a good bench. You've got João Felix, you've got Pedro Neto, you've got the kid, the left back that came on that looks really good. I can't think what his name is now, but another young these young players have been picked for a reason, and some of them aren't going to be amazing. Madrid was an early one, which doesn't look great, but some of the other ones, I tell you, they all can play a little bit. Malo Gusto is a good example of somebody we didn't know a ton about. But he looks really comfortable. So I'm enjoying Fofana. I think Wesley Fofana, again, raw, wild, makes some mistakes, takes risks, but wow, what a player on the ball. And no, it's good.
Because obviously there was a lot of talk about him and that he's not been in the Premier League and what he did at Leicester, but he stuck to what he came to our desk, and I thought he was very confident and in a good way about what he wanted, how he was going to work. Didn't worry about too many of the the 50-odd players. He's going to work with his group. He's going to get it right. And fair play to him, because we're starting to see that. And as you say, they're excited. Chelsea now, Chelsea v anyone is an exciting game, isn't it? It's kind of got a little bit of a buzz back to Chelsea.
Yeah, and another player that deserves a little bit of mention, Rob, is Marc Cucurella. Now, he had a good game. And I think the Chelsea fans appreciate a player, right, that got a bit of stick. It was a big fee. He came in, it didn't do great. He let people go around him too easily. His confidence was shot to pieces, I think, at the beginning. And the fans have appreciated a guy that's found his form, had a great summer, comes back in. He got a standing ovation. He got subbed out late, got a standing ovation. And Marc Cucurella's face, he was so thrilled with the reception that he got walking off. His little face, he was looking around and smiling. Fair play. Fair play to a player.
Fans are like that. It's a great example, and I'd say maybe Joe Ellington's another example. Yeah, centre forward at Newcastle couldn't buy a goal, and all of a sudden he goes in midfield, and they love him now. They love that you can turn that around, that you're prepared to battle on, that you didn't sulk, you didn't put in for a transfer. Yeah. And you're right, Cucurella has been a great example. But Ben Chilwell was having to leave the club at one point. Now he's sitting there and not even part of the first team picture. So good shout with those individuals. And again, that well managed young players. This manager's obviously got a way of connecting with them, getting more out of them. Good times ahead.
Good times ahead.
Chelsea, sort out the ownership and they'll be okay. Maybe Maresca's got to get involved in there as well, sort that out. Let's go to Molineux, Wolverhampton Wanderers, and Gary O'Neill. Struggle for form. I think it's 5 losses and 6 at home recently, so struggle for a bit of form. Form wasn't great under last season. His name's come up as one of those. He needs a couple of results pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Liverpool go and get the job done. Win 2-1. I didn't think it was stellar Liverpool, but an important win. 5 wins out of 6 for Arne Slot and Liverpool, and one of those days where points probably better than performance.
I think the performance was good.
Yeah.
And I heard a couple of people say that it was a bit underwhelming. I thought it was good, and I'll tell you why I think it was good, because I think it was patient, it was composed, it was solid, it was fluid at times. Yeah, some of the football wasn't their best football, but there's a control, and I know it's the word that we keep saying. There's a steadiness, Rob. Wolves, and are tough opponents, and I'll double down on it now. They are much better. They are much better than their table league right now, where they are suggests. That's by watching them.
They've had a very difficult to play.
They're a good
Arne
side.
Slot mentioned that after the game, actually.
Did
said
he?
Exactly the same thing.
They're a good side. They've got good energy.
Up in all 6 games, they've given the opposition problems.
A lot of problems. They've had a nightmare start. They've had a lot of very difficult teams. The top teams from
injuries,
last year,
illness this week.
Yeah, and they made mistakes. They made some mistakes, but they started really well, and the first half was kind of even. But Liverpool and Ibrahim Konate had a game, Rob. He makes a mistake defensively, and Liverpool looks solid, look absolutely solid. Van Dijk is in imperious best form right now. The midfield has this rotation that I'm really enjoying at the moment. They fill in the spots. Different players go forward, different players sit back. The front players are scoring the goals and doing well. Mo Salah takes his penalty really, really well. Konate gets a strong header. They've only got 2 goals conceded, Rob. And I just said one was a mistake from Konate, where he's just trying to shield the ball out. Bad error between him and Alisson. That's a really bad error. Other than that, and I think we know the attacking players they've got. I think we've both been impressed with the midfield and how it's kind of Gravenberch being okay, he's really come in and done well.
He was excellent again, by the way.
Excellent again. You marry that with a front 4 that all, I would say, all of them are looking really good and scoring goals. I'm really, and I'm not saying they're going to win the Premier League title, Rob, but I think there's a really good start to Arne Slot. Yeah. And I know there's tougher games ahead. I know it's Wolves. I know their schedule hasn't been very difficult. We are going to find out. I think after the next international break, Rob, they've got a ton of difficult games coming up. But I really like what I've seen. I'm ready to see Liverpool against some of the better sides to see if that's going to make a difference. But again, last point before I let you speak, Rob, is that the defensive insurance structure is different and it's better. And that, when you think about the front players they've got that can score, that's got to make Liverpool fans feel a little bit happier of how they might do this year.
Yeah, and I think that structure was important. And where I was saying I didn't think they were quite as fluent as we've seen them. I didn't think it was a great day for the attackers, particularly. I didn't. It wasn't like when you've seen them and the combination play and all that. It wasn't that kind of day. I wrote down one point the odd couple, Gravenberch and McAllister. I like the odd couple in the middle of the court, mate. They are so important. Complement each other really well. 2 players who are playing in roles I didn't necessarily think they would, but playing together individually. Yeah. It's all one thing, Rob, and it just caught my eye. So it was Liverpool went on the attack, and McAllister went and closed the goalkeeper down. I think they played it out down to the left-hand side. I think he played out to Aitner, the left back. And what McAllister did, he just got mad. He sprinted from inside the penalty area where he closed the goalkeeper all the way back to the halfway line to get next to Gravenberch. Sprinted, not jogged.
Wow.
Sprinted, got his shape. Then, like you saw him having a rest, and everything else clicked in. Then, and it just really caught me. I thought, wow, that's there's 2 things there. One, the discipline and the kind of responsibility to do that, and 2, it made me think this guy is getting his messages across of how he wants his team out of possession.
Yeah,
it wasn't even like a second thought for McAllister. The moment
he knew where he had to be.
He had sprinting back to the halfway line, like sprinting, mate, and then got there, and then you saw him like take a breather. And I thought, wow, that's different. That's what's starting to happen at this club. Instead of the counter press and the gegen press and all that, it's like structure, get back into shape, we'll have more numbers around the ball, and will be harder to break down.
Did you read that interview with just on the manager, Slot and Trent Alexander-Arnold? Is this more than a week ago? Did we talk about this before? I don't think we did. An interview came out with the manager talking about Trent, and they sit down and go through his performances after every game. And Slot, I think Trent had sort of agreed with Arne Slot, saying like, "Listen, I'm going to back you to the hilt. But whenever you get beat defensively, I'm going to call you out." And Alexander-Arnold was like, "Love it. Yeah, absolutely love it." And he basically said he's been a great defender. I mean, he said he's been a great defender throughout his career. Yeah. He's won a Premier League and he's won a Champions League, Trent Alexander-Arnold. And I know it's a bit that I've certainly given criticism, Rob, for times where he's got beat a little bit early. But just you reminded me there when you said McAllister sprints back. We have seen Alexander-Arnold sprint back. There was times in this game that when I watch him defend now, Rob, he looks like a different.
Wants to defend.
He wants to defend. He sprints as if like, I've had a word with the manager, and this is what I'm not going to get away with this. I'm going to try and improve on this. And if he does that, and if he continues to be a really tough defender to get by, given his world-class flipping tools for the other side of it, he'll be the best right back in the world. Yeah. So I just liked the way that Slot, and it rings true what I can remember reading about him. He's a developer of talent. He's a player improver, and that's where he stands out a little bit. And if we're seeing it now with him, maybe with a couple of others, that bodes well. Now, this is all very positive. He's still got tougher games, and it's a long season, but these little details are important. And it's interesting. Midfield, as you said, Rob, is so in. Szoboszlai's been better. They fill in for each other. There's two double pivot when they've got time to get back. When they have it, they're a little bit different again. It's really interesting. And I thought, not spectacular, but a good place, a difficult place to go. And Wolves, they equalised and they gave the penalty away, didn't they? With with Jota gets dragged back.
Hold of him, didn't he? And chugged it back.
The tough times for Wolves and Gary O'Neill, but again, for me, they will not be in that.
Don't do anything silly. No. He's a good coach. He's proved. Other managers are talking about how difficult he is. So. But good start. Like 5 wins and 6, mate. Top of the table.
Fair play.
Couldn't have gone much better than that. I think what was it on the first day? Arne Slot, what you got? Looks like he's got a bit, to be honest, mate. He's got a bit. But you say more difficult games come. Obviously, different competitions as well. So we'll see how that works out as we go down the stretch. All right, mate. Let's have a look roundup of the other games. So today, Ipswich 2, Aston Villa 2. I picked Ipswich to stay in the league. I think they'll have enough about them. I thought this is another sort of evidence that the way they'll play. I think they've got a smart manager. I think there's been some smart acquisitions against a Villa team that's one of the best, informed teams in the league. A couple of goals from Delap, was it? Up front for Ipswich. I just think they've got a balance, mate, that with the signings, with the manager, with maybe a window, I just feel like they are the ones of the teams that came up most likely to survive, if any are.
Yeah, listen, I'm going to agree with you. The more we see the newly promoted teams as they morph into what they're going to be for this season. Ipswich, I really like them in this game, Rob. I wrote the same thing you just said. I basically said I like the team. It's got a nice balance about it. It's very well coached. And if you do look at the signings they've made, Rob, and I know that promoted teams and often do better when they keep a chunk of the players that got them promoted. I think they have upgraded in certain spots really, really well. There's some recognizable names like Axel Twanzebi's there, Rob. Calvin Phillips, of course. Chidozie Ogbonne from Luton Town, I thought was a good player. Plays on the right-hand side. Liam Delap, who gets a couple of goals. Dara O'Shea from Burnley. Now, I know that some of these players were relegated last year, but it doesn't mean they're bad players, And I think if you're smart, like I think Ipswich have done, you pick some of the better ones from some of the other that you can get for a good price and just update your team a little bit. Ipswich Town last year, Rob, and I looked at a few of their matches from last season, were very much like almost gung-ho. Like we're
flying people forward.
We're going to score more goals than you. And I do like the way that the manager, and it doesn't always happen, Rob. We spoke before about that. He's just said, okay, this is the big league now. We can't really do that. And it's a different approach. I did make a note here, I think in the first half, I thought they were a little passive. That was a little critique that maybe as the game wore on, that's less important now. But I thought they were a little bit passive and allowed Villa quite a lot of comfy possession. But they broke well, And my underappreciated performer, and it's an easy one really, low hanging fruit. Liam Delap gets a couple of goals. Love his second goal, Rob. Because if there's one thing that we know from being there and from seeing it for many seasons, is that the teams at the bottom often struggle with that. That's the striker, the quality. And I wasn't sure. I think, we like Liam Delap, like from Man City.
Yeah, he's a kid at City.
Good reputation. Can he bring it?
Good record, but
and he wasn't great like
from that academy to Premier League.
Yeah, and then to Championship, and then back up. And can he be the guy? Maybe he can. And it's an easy, underappreciated performer. Liam Delap gets a couple of goals. Love the second goal. Step inside, beautiful step inside. Takes it away from Diego Carlos, I think it is. Who for me is a weak spot with Villa. A little bit at the moment when they've got Mings out and they've got Matty Cash out, so Constrat to go to play right back, and they bring in Carlos. But no, I want to give a shout out for Liam Delap. I know it's an easy one with the 2 goals, but I think our guys in the studio kind of said he's got a little bit of something, and I think he has. And as the season goes on, we'll see whether that little bit of something is good enough to be a regular scorer. Because we both know that Ipswich Town, to stay in the league, have got to get a guy or maybe a few guys to get some good numbers. And playing as a striker, the onus is going to be on him.
There's usually 2 ways to do that, isn't it? It's usually go to the Championship, find somebody who's a Championship who you think can step up, or go to one of the big academies where they produce talent and you take a risk. And remember Ryan Brewster, who ended up with Sheffield United,
didn't play.
He's one it hasn't really worked for as yet. So it is a gamble, but he comes with good pedigree, scored goals in Championship before. I think it was Hull or someone was he Delap. But it's a good shout, and it's good to see young players being given the opportunity to become 12, 15 goal scorers. Do enough to keep a team in.
They got a chance, Rob, haven't they? Ipswich, they got a chance. They got a decent bench as well, by the way. Wes Burns comes off, could have scored the winning goal. They got some decent players off the bench that almost
great. They're gonna have a great atmosphere. Portman Road, great stadium. We both
good
played
club.
there. They're gonna love the first season being up. They'll be difficult away from home against people tactically well set up. So they've got a chance. Of, looking forward to seeing a bit more of Ipswich as the season goes on. One of the most important results of the weekend: Everton 2, Crystal Palace 1. Everton get the first win of the season. Dwight McNeil with a couple of goals. Gay put Crystal Palace ahead. McNeil brings them back level, and then scores a beauty, doesn't
Lovely
he?
Goal.
First goal, second goal's not bad either. He was close to being my underappreciated performer.
He is a bit underappreciated, isn't he?
Come from Burnley. I'm not sure he's always been fans' favourite.
No, you're right.
Since he's moved him under the striker, playing more as a 10, we're starting to see, that full ability, that lovely left foot, and a really important win for Everton, Sean Dyche, which I'm sure will give some confidence back. And I believe Brentford was back, was he?
He's back.
Brentford, we talked about, isn't it, how important just getting him back in the team. I know he's only a young player who's not had that many games, but he's an important part of the piece that Sean Dyche has.
Yeah, and also, I think there's a sense, and I think Sean Dyche said it either before or after, Rob, that they are going to get a new owner and they are going to get helped out. And the Moshiri, huge spending, but still got themselves in trouble, is maybe coming to an end now. I know there's been new owners been muted for a while now, but it looks like this one was cold. It went hot again. I think an agreement is kind of in place. So finally, it may be, I think there was a sense after the game, Rob, and I didn't, it's one of them there's a lot going on in this window. I think there's a bit of a sense of relief around Goodison Park. It's a brilliant comeback from 1-0 down.
Absolutely.
And with the ownership situation helping out, the stadium looks magnificent. We saw it in construction a couple of seasons, 2 years ago, is it now? A year ago? It was the last game of the season. So the season before last. So no, well done, Everton. And those long-suffering Everton fans. Again, this is only one result, and they still got a lot of work to do. But I think I said it, Rob. I like the way McNeil's inside. Iliman Ndiaye, this new player, this winger, brings an excitement to the club that they've not really had. Harrison makes a good cross on one of them.
He came on as a sub at half-time, apparently changed the whole...
So, fair play to Sean Dyche, Rob.
Yeah, he's done a bit of pressure.
A lot more people question him recently. Like, is he the man?
Yeah.
He's done some job, Rob, in difficult circumstances.
Absolutely.
Over the last couple of seasons. So
he said he's a book to write, didn't they, on the Everton score? But not for now. But not for now. Yeah. A couple of good results. Fulham continue to get good results. Raul Jimenez, great to see him back scoring goals. Penalty went to VAR. It was the right decision. It was a push on Fulham player. Jimenez picks it off, opens and gets a goal. So good 3 points for Fulham. And Brentford won West Ham. Brentford scoring again in the first minute. I think it's 3 games.
3 times on a spin, yeah.
And Burma with the goal. And Thomas Souček, mate, who's been important, doesn't he? He's like the Marianne Fellaini, isn't he? Remember,
he keeps keeping them going. With all the glamorous players they've got at West Ham, Rob, with the new signings, it's Thomas Souček that flipping grinds away in midfield and gets himself into the box and gets another goal. So West Ham, difficult.
A little
poor start for them,
aren't they? Yeah,
they're struggling a little bit.
All right, my friend, it's a weekend. We've had 9 games. We've had 30 goals, quite simply. The best league in the world. Don't forget, tomorrow, Monday, we've got Bournemouth facing Southampton. That's 3 p.m. Eastern Time on USA Network. So have a look for that one. Obviously, both those teams, Southampton, particularly needing points. We'll be back next weekend for the next instalment of the Premier League soap opera. That'll be Matchweek 7, where Liverpool go to Palace. And Manchester United, they have to go to Aston Villa, and they're desperate for points. So that's going to be another big game for Manchester United. But for now, I'm Earle. He's Mustoe, together with the 2 Robbies. Thanks for watching and listening. Be safe, stay healthy. It's a good night from him.
And it's good night from him. Good night.
Hi there, I'm Rebecca Lowe, studio host of NBC's coverage of the Premier League. Don't forget to hit subscribe to watch more videos all season long. And if you want even more Premier League content, from original series to live matches, head over to Peacock.